All right. Hello again, adventures, and welcome to another exciting episode of Designing the New Dragons. Join me as we may be creating your new favorite Kiki character. Like I mentioned in my Open Legend video, I'm doing my best to try and standardize these a little bit more so I can do things like add timestamps, which make them easier to watch. Things like that. However, because building a character in different systems is so very different, there really isn't going to be kind of a standardized outline I can make that I can use for my timestamps. So we're going to play this a little bit by ear. So if you're watching this and there are no timestamps, that means I failed. And we will try again in the next one. That being said, obviously, we're going to be building a character in Open Legend. Now, as I mentioned in my previous video, in the Discovering New Dragons video on Open Legend in and of itself doesn't really have lore attached to it. It is a genre-neutral RPG system, and it's also what's called what I call a skill-based RPG, meaning there are no classes or anything like that, and there also aren't any races or backgrounds, quote-unquote, for it either. So you really are very, very open to create any kind of character you want. Normally in these videos, I will actually look at the options they have, and I'll pick like one or two at random, or I'll go, oh, that sounds interesting, and I'll use that to kind of guide my character creation. Well, in this one, I can't. There's nothing to really guide me. So, I believe yesterday, or the day before, depending on when this actually goes live, I made a post in the community tab, basically asking you guys to describe a character. Whatever weird, interesting, bizarre, whatever character you want, describe it there, and I will see if I can't make something like it in Open Legend. Thus far, I've only had one person replied, but they mentioned SCP number 049. For anyone that doesn't know, the SCP Foundation, which stands for Secure, Contain, Protect, is kind of, I mean, effectively, it's kind of like a creepypasta thing where people would just kind of tell these stories about these monsters from a perspective of them actually existing. Like, you would find transcripts of conversations with these creatures or notes about them as if they'd been discovered in a lab or something like that. It's actually a really, really interesting site, and one of them is this creature. They're all listed by SCP-number. And so this one in particular is called the Plague Doctor. And so I'm going to go ahead and try and build a version of that, because this creature in and of itself would not be a level 1 Open Legend character. Bare minimum, I would consider this like a level 5 or like a level 7 if I was building it as a character. If I was creating it as a monster, this would be a boss monster, and it would probably be a minimum of level 10, if not closer to level like 13 to 15, because it's meant to be this super, super powerful thing that has to be contained. Yeah, so let's start off by describing the character we are going to create in this particular one. Generally, this won't be how I do it, but because this is Open Legend, this is how I have to do it. The character themselves, again, the Plague Doctor is effectively, it's this humanoid figure that can speak both Renaissance French and English. And it has a Plague Doctor mask basically permanently affixed to its face. in addition to like wearing Plague Doctor robes. If you're not familiar with the term Plague Doctor, during the bubonic plague, there were these doctors that would help treat patients, and in order to keep themselves from being infected by it themselves, because at that point, the most widely accepted theory of how diseases spread was called the miasma theory, which basically translates to bad air. Basically, they thought that bad air is what caused people to get sick. And so the plague doctors would actually wear these very distinct masks that had kind of like goggle-like eyes, and they would completely cover their face, and they would have this kind of long kind of nose to them. That, to my understanding, they used to put like potpourri and stuff in that, so that when they were dealing with all this kind of death and disease, they wouldn't have to completely just smell the smell of death and disease. So it's become a very, very iconic look, and that's what this character is based off of. The character themselves, or the creature itself, though, is very strange. It has this obsession with curing this mythical disease that it calls the pestilence. Anytime it's been asked exactly what the pestilence is, it can't really define it other than by calling it itself. It is, well, what is pestilence? Well, it's pestilence. That's what it is, which doesn't really help. And it seems to see this pestilence in anywhere, and it can't describe what the symptoms are or anything like that, but its goal is to cure it. And the way that it ends up curing it is any creature that it touches will die instantly. And then it will dissect the creatures and kind of rearrange limbs and do just kind of body horror style bad stuff to them. And then every so often, those creatures will kind of be reanimated. And the Plague Doctor will say, well, they've been cured. And that's kind of what they do. They've been captured by the SCP Foundation, and every so often they are given various animals and things like that to experiment on, because they're always trying to further their research and find a perfect cure for the pestilence. Despite the fact that they can't really tell you what the pestilence is, nor can they tell you why the kind of undead zombie-like creatures that they keep creating are somehow cured. When asked about it, they will go, well, it's not a perfect cure, but obviously they're no longer suffering from the pestilence, so that's a cure in my book. And so that's kind of the whole point of this character, is if it touches you, you die, and then it will cut you up and kind of dissect you and vivisect you and all those the lovely terms, and then sometimes, not always, but sometimes it will basically resurrect you as this weird abomination of a zombie. So that's what we're going to try and build a version of. Probably a lesser, like an early version of it before it became so dangerous that SCP had to jump in. So yeah, let's jump into building the character itself. So, first things first, we need character sheet. This is the online character builder that I have a link for in the... I actually move this slightly, so it's slightly more center. There we go. It's the online character builder that I have linked in my other video. Again, because Open Legend is completely 100% open, this has all of your character options already here. With things like, if I go over here, what does agility mean? Well, dodge attacks, move with stealth, perform acrobatics, shoot a bow, pick a pocket. It gives you really good ideas about what's entropy, disintegrate matter, kill with a word, create undead, sicken others. So all those things are really easy to understand. So we're going to start with the character sheet, but I actually do have the core book open, and chapter 1 is called Character. creation. I'm going to take a drink real quick. If anyone's wondering why I'm drinking this, I have not been able to eat recently because my brain doesn't like me. So Ensure gives me things like calories and vitamins and stuff so that I don't starve. Super fun, and it's chocolate, and I like chocolate. So character creation works a little bit differently than I'm used to in an RPG, and it just works this way because this is how Open Legend works. So step one for character creation Open Legend is describe your character. And this is where I slightly disagree with this, because the first thing they tell you to do is come up with a heroic name. I am the kind of person that I will generally name my character after I have them completely built, because the name itself has to kind of tie in my mind to how the character plays. So I generally won't name a character until after I'm done building. But the next thing it asks you for is your race, which if you look on the character sheet, we don't actually have a race area, but we do have what's called an archetype. And the archetype is basically you can make up your own class, and if you want to use a race, you can do it there. Races don't give you any sort of mechanical benefit or anything, like an elf or a dwarf or anything. If you want that to be part of your character, is not going to change your attributes at all. Unless you choose to make certain attributes higher because of your race. But there's, unlike, you know, Dungeons and Dragons, for example, your race isn't really going to, like, elves don't get a bonus to agility or anything like that. Your choice of attributes is going to be entirely based on the character you want to play. This is more just kind of describing it. They also mentioned you should choose your size. Another thing that's not really on here, but you do have a description area where you can choose your size. They say small, medium, or large. Small is 2 to 4 feet. Large, medium is going to be kind of your average human, which most humans are anywhere between about 5 to 6 feet tall for your average human. And then large is going to be from 7 to 10 feet tall. Again, all of this really doesn't change a whole lot. Unless you're using minis or anything like that, or using maps and stuff like that. Your size isn't really going to change a ton, except like a large creature occupies a 10-foot by 10-foot square in combat and has a 10-foot reach. That's the only time things are going to be different. So for this particular creature, they are medium. So just in the description, I'm going to go medium. And we can give an archetype, because we know what the archetype is going to be. It's going to be SCP-049. So that's our archetype. We're going to actually, the character name, because we already know, is going to be Plague Doctor. And they're going to be a medium humanoid. So we got that stuff, not too difficult. And then it asks for 2 exceptional physical traits, 2 defining social traits, and a secret. Again, there's nowhere on this particular character sheet here other than the additional notes. This is a section. So exceptional physical traits, we can say Plague Doctor Mask. Wow, I can't spell at all, or type. P-L-A... How do I... P-L-A-U... I cannot spell plague right now. I spelt it like 2 seconds ago. Plague you. There. There we go. Plague, Doctor, Mask, permanently attached to face. And then robe is part of body, cannot be removed. And then 2 defining social traits. Um, we can say bilingual. Wow. Bilingual French and English. Switches between them when needed. And then we'll say other defining social trait. Condescending to non-doctors. Because they do have kind of this condescension of, ha 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 ha, well, I'm a doctor. But as soon as somebody mentions, oh, I'm a doctor, oh, well, then you understand. So we'll do that. So there, we have that. And then a secret. And the secret we're going to give... Really? There we go. Secret we're going to give is going to be secret. Doesn't actually know what the pestilence is. That's the secret. So it will, this character will constantly talk about how it's trying to cure the pestilence and everything, but it doesn't actually know what it is. It has just decided that it knows that it exists, but for the life of it, it has no idea what it actually is, and therefore coming up with a cure is actually impossible for it because there's no definition of it. But it won't admit that ever. And it will, anytime somebody tries to kind of question it, it will just kind of condescend and talk down to them as like, obviously you're too stupid to understand what the pestilence is, so there's no reason why I should waste my time explaining it to you. So we've got that, and that's kind of the describe your characters section. So now again, for me, this is a little bit backwards. I generally, like I will, a lot of times I will start with kind of an idea for a character. But I do like to kind of, especially in a freeform thing like this, I do like to kind of define the abilities and then kind of switch between the character description and the attributes and stuff like that. Just back and forth. I think completely building the character without any bit of idea of how the attributes are going to work, I don't think works super well. But I will say that is how I built all of the Realms of the Wild characters, in that I talked to everyone except Aruna, because Elias built Aruna, and Elias knows the system at least as well as I do, if not better, because that's who Elias is. But anyway, so I did just talk to the players and go, well, let's come up with an idea for a character, and then I will make the... I will build a character that works like the one you described, but don't feel that you're going to be limited by, well, I'm going to be a rogue, or I'm going to... No, just create a character that would be fun to play, and then we will backwards build that into a character. Some people can do that, some people can't do that. I do it often. But normally the first time I'm building a character in a system, I don't. So anyway, moving on. Now we get to choose attributes. This is where things start getting a little bit more interesting. So, you can do like, one of the things I like about this. So I get level 1, it tells me I've got 40 total points that I can build. So if I want to just put things in, I can do this, and you can see I already have 14 points spent. However... They do have what are called quick builds in here, which is basically they give you some stats, very much like a standard, the standard array from D&D 5th edition, 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8. They do have some quick builds. They have a specialized hero, a well-rounded hero, and a jack of all trades. And I think for this one, we're instead of me just building everything from scratch and kind of doing math on the fly, I'm just going to use one of these quick builds, because it makes it faster. And we're going to have a character that we want in a second here anyways. So this, for me, feels like a specialized hero. So to kind of figure out how we're going to create this, first things first, I think the fact that they can kill with a touch and can kind of reanimate corpses and things like that, I think entropy needs to be their most powerful skill. So the specialized hero quick build is 5-4-3-2-2-2. So I'm going to start with 5 points in entropy because that just feels like it makes the most sense. I need to check because I thought, yeah, the highest any score can reach at first level is 5. So even if you are like just doing a pure, just kind of point by, you can never start with anything higher than 5. So if you want to min max, you're only ever going to be able to get up to 5. So this one we want 5, and then with it being a doctor, it would make sense to me for their logic to be relatively high as well. So that's where we're going to put our 4. And then for, because they are a surgeon, I think having agility at 3, because one of the things that they do mention is they can move kind of superhumanly fast in certain situations. Like there's a story on the SCPP website or wiki for this of a doctor kind of interviewing the plague doctor, like a real doctor interviewing the plague doctor, and the plague doctor is very apprehensive and kind of skittish during the entire thing, and they effectively claim that the doctor that's interviewing him, that they have interacted with many times before, is somehow infected with the pestilence. And so quicker than anyone can see or react to, he kind of moves forward very, very quickly and just touches the real doctor, and they're gone. They're dead. And then he starts dissecting them and everything, and kind of resurrects the real doctor as a zombie. So I think having a decently high agility would make sense. I believe... so the social skills here are kind of interesting because most people understand perception and persuasion, or deception and persuasion. Like, everyone understands that. But presence is one that I really, really enjoy this. So presence is kind of... like a combination of like performance and other things like that, where it's basically kind of a charisma style thing, how good you are at kind of influencing others. But my favorite thing about this, you can see it says, give a speech, sing a song, inspire an army, all things that are very charismatic, exert your force of personality, okay, more charisma, or have luck smile upon you. And I really like the aspect that if you just want to have a very lucky character, you could use their presence score as basically a luck score. So when things go right for them, you would roll, or when you're saying, well, I just, this guy's going to do something, let's see if everything just works for them, you could roll a presence check for that. There's a feat that you can take, which we'll deal with in a little bit here. There's a feat that you can take, that lets you substitute one attribute for another one. Like, say, the example that they give is kind of like a Jackie Chan style fighter, where a lot of times the reason that fights go in Jackie Chan movies, the reason that fights go in his way is not so much his incredible martial ability, but because he'll like fall and then knock up other things, and or he'll trip over something and that'll help him kind of miss getting hit by something, and then something else will fall. And while, yes, I mean, Jackie Chan is an incredibly talented martial artist, the choreography that he does makes it look like he's doing everything on accident. And I love that. And so using that feat, you could use presence instead of your agility to make attack rolls, and just go that he's accidentally doing everything he's supposed to. If you've ever watched Community, there's an homage to the Captain America: The Winter Soldier in season 6, where the dean walks into an elevator with a bunch of people with paintball guns, because paintball's a thing in Community. And he's able to defeat all of them completely by accident. Like, he just, oops, up, and he shoots all of them. And so I really love that idea. So for this character in particular, I don't really think that they're exceptional liars or that they're exceptionally persuasive. I think they just have one of these presences that people tend to kind of look towards, and they have kind of authority. So I'm going to give one of the twos we have to presence. I mentioned before that they can move very, very quickly. So I think putting 2 points in supernatural movement might make sense. And then for our final one, they do have a pretty decent willpower. So I think it would make sense for us to put 2 points into the willpower. So you can see we've got 40 spent, a 40 total. The thing that I like about this is all of these defense attributes are auto-calculated based on your scores here. So guard is agility plus might plus armor plus, if you have any feats, plus 10. So we know that our guard is 13 because agility is already there. Toughness is based on fortitude and will. So we have 2 in will, so that gives us toughness. Resolve is presence, will, and then feats, so we have a 14 resolve. So the resolve skill for defense for this character is its highest. And then hit points are also automatically figured out, which is 2 times fortitude, will, and presence, plus 10. So we have 18 hit points, which is not a bad starting hit point for a first level open legend character. We will deal with perks and flaws in a little bit, but that's our attributes. And that's really all you have to do is go, well, what do I think this character can do? Well, they're a surgeon, so they should be relatively agile, but they should also be very, very smart. And then, obviously, whatever kind of undead power they have, entropy should be something that they're very, very connected to. Like the fact that they can kill with a touch, that's entropy. Raising zombies from the dead, that's also something you would use entropy for. We'll talk about how they do that in a second. And then that kind of super speed movement, giving them a little bit of extraordinary movement will let us be able to simulate that. So again, really easy, really simple to kind of build a character with this. You just look for the stuff that makes sense and then put points in it. Now, the part that I actually really, really enjoy. We'll deal with feats in a second. What we're going to look at first is we're going to look at Banes and Boons. And this may kind of screw stuff up here because of how I have this cropped and everything. We'll see what happens. Actually, it works pretty well for Banes and Boons. So, what I did here, and this is one of the reasons I love this so much. For Banes and Boons, Boons are effectively buffs and things like that, good things that you want to happen. Banes are bad things that you want to happen to your enemies. And you can invoke them based on the attributes that you have here. And so what this does is after I put all my attributes in, I can just kick view available Banes and view available Boons, and it will give me a list of the ones that I should be able to use right now. So you can see there's the blinded, these are the Banes. So this is the blinded Bane. You blind your foe with anything from a massive explosion to a handful of sand to an Arctic blast to a dazzling flash of light. Pirates, snipers, rogues, and necromancers often make use of this Bane in combat. What we're looking for is things that are going to help us simulate what this character can do. So I think fear makes a lot of sense for this one. If you want to know exactly how we're able to get fear. So fear can, it's a power level 5, so you have to have a minimum of 5 in a stat to be able to invoke the Fear Bane. As you can see, you could have a 5 in creation, entropy, influence, or might to do it. And if you're trying to invoke it, you would make an entropy roll versus the target's resolved. And then this is what the effect is. On its turn, the afflicted target must use its entire turn to get as far away as possible from you. It cannot use its action to do anything other than retreat, and it cannot willingly move close to you while the bane persists. This, to me, because SCP is such is based off of fear and stuff like this, and this is a very terrifying creature to think of. The Fear Bane makes a ton of sense for the Plague Doctor to have. So in actions, as you can see, they have a bunch of things. These are just going to be kind of cheat sheets to kind of remind you the things that you can do. I'm going to be putting things in here like Fear Bane, which uses the entropy skill, and versus resolve. And so now I know if I want to use the Fear Bane, I just roll an entropy, which is a d20 plus 2d6, because I have a 5 in entropy, so 2d6. And then invoking a Bane, it's 10 plus 2 times the level of the Bane. So because this is a fifth level Bane, that means the target number is 20 to inflict it. So now I have everything I need, so that's how it does the Fear Bane, and that is something that makes sense for this creature to use. But we need to look at more stuff. So persistent damage, to me, this makes a lot of sense because, again, the creature itself is supposed to be able to basically kill with a touch. And in the stories, it's an insta-death thing. Well, insta-death is really, really powerful. And there is an insta-death Bane in Open Legend, but you have to be a much higher level to do it. So I think the persistent damage thing makes a little bit more sense for this character. You know, they are described as being this kind of decaying, like things that they touch kind of decay around them. So persistent damage might be an easy way to do that. So as you can see, I can use either agility or entropy. Entropy is versus toughness. Agility is versus guard. And then you can see you can invoke it at a bunch of different power levels. The highest we can invoke it at is power level 4 using our entropy. And that would be 1d6 damage per round. So we're going to go here. And we're just going to go persistent damage. And that's entropy versus toughness. And then power level 2 is 1d4. Power level 3 is 1d6, except it's not 3, it's power level 4. So there, I have it right there. So I don't have to remember any of this stuff. If I invoke it, I know power level 2, power level 4, and we can figure out the target number by just going, okay, well, 10 plus 2 times 2 is 14. So there we go. 10 plus 2 times 4 is 18. So I have to get target number of 18 or higher to do a d6, 14 or higher to do a d4. Easy. And then the final Bane that we're going to give this, I think the Sickened Bane makes the most sense. Another thing of you just getting sick and having bad things happen to you. So as you can see, this is exclusive to using entropy. And the effect is the target has disadvantage 1 on all action rolls and a -1 to all defenses. So what we're going to do here is go Sickness Bane. And this is again going to be entropy versus toughness. And it's disadvantage 1 and -1 to defenses. To defense. Okay, so let's see if I can put all in there. just do it that way. So disadvantage 1, -1 to all defenses. So we've got these 3 different Banes. However, we also want to be able to do damage. And so I'm just going to call this, you know, Touch of Death, which is just going to be entropy versus guard. And this is literally just a melee attack. And this is going to be how they just do regular attacks. Is they just walk up to someone and touch them. And so this character in and of itself, just from the Banes and everything the thing that we have, is going to be a very kind of control-based character, where they do their best to kind of, you know, fear some creatures, do things like sickness and persistent damage to wear them down, and then every so often they're going to come up and just touch someone to kill them. And so we have all these different actions. We also need to look at boons. So we look at boons. As you can see, lots of different cool looking boons and stuff like that. This is one that might be interesting. And this is where, like, again, when we look at all the, because we'll stay on the Banes for a second. When you look at all the other Banes, like you can have a slowed Bane, you can have a silenced Bane. Mechanically, you can do all these things. Knockdown, incapacitated. This is kind of a touch of death kind of thing. Where you touch them and they immediately become immobile and unconscious. I think for a first level character that's a little bit overpowered, which is why I didn't put it in there instantly. And there is some limitation to it, but things like demoralized or blinded, those just didn't really make sense with the character that we created. So I'm not going to really put them in there, and that's where the limitations are. It's not so much mechanically. Mechanically, I can do all these different things. But the limitations are going to come in, well, it doesn't really fit the character that we created. It's one of the reasons why before you start adding boons and banes, you really need to have a good idea of the character themselves. You can start with the attributes and go, well, we're going to do this and this and this, but you do need to kind of go between the attributes and kind of describing the character at the same time. Which again is different than what I'm used to doing for most RPGs, but it just works in Open Legend. So going over to boons, again, one of the things we can do is cast darkness. Well, darkness really isn't a power that this character has, or giving the character blind sight so that they don't need to be able to see, or giving the ability to heal. This character, while they are being a doctor, I don't really see them healing anything. You know, that just doesn't make sense. Despite the fact that we do have the ability, both logic and presence can be used to heal. So one of the other things I like about this system is you can use your presence score to heal people, because your hit points are not like how much blood you have in your body or anything. It's your will to fight. And so being able to regain your will to fight might be done by using something like creation magic, where you're literally casting a healing spell. But it can just as easily be someone going, hey, come on, you got this. Get up, get back in the fight. And so you can use your presence to heal people. I love that. This is not a healing character. But we talked about before, they do make these zombie-like characters. So having summon creature makes a lot of sense. And as you can see, they have a little description of how you would build your zombies effectively. Depending on the power level, they will have, like, we can invoke it at either 4th or 5th, and it would either have 4 hit points or 5 hit points. All their defenses would be 11 or 12, and you have a 2 and a 1 and a 1, or a 3 and a 2 and a 2 that you can put into fortitude, might, perception, energy, and entropy, and agility. I forgot that one. So those are the only things that you can put points in, and it lets you basically build a zombie right there. And because of that, because of how this creature works, because of how this character works, we're going to go here, and we're actually going to go preferred boons, and we're going to go all the way down to summon creature 4, and you can see it auto-populates exactly what this is. It takes a focus action. Focus action is basically your move and your action, I believe your minor as well, all in one. and you have to use a minor action to sustain it. An attribute, we're just going to go entropy. And then we can do the same thing by just having both of them in here. We don't have to list it twice, because we can figure out that if we can summon it at level 4, we can also summon it at level 5. But I don't see too many other... boons that we're going to give to this character, because they're just not meant to use a lot of boons or anything like that. They're very Bane focused. But as you can see, we have both of those in there, and it auto-populates. The only thing that you would need to write down somewhere, maybe in the additional notes. Though what I do, because I play I play on Roll20, when you add an action, you can call it a boon, and you can actually tell it what each power level you can invoke it at does. So that makes it a lot easier. It's one of the reasons I really love Roll20 for this, because the character sheet that's built into Roll20 is phenomenal. Cool. So, we got their boons, we got their banes. Let's talk about feats. And I'm going to go ahead and close those two tabs. You don't need it anymore. So feats are going to be the other thing that is really going to kind of change how your character plays. As you can see, lots of different feats here. And you'll see that they have numbers next to them. If we go back here, feat points, I've got 6 total feat points that I can spend at level 1. So you can see, if I wanted to, I told you guys before about attribute substitution. If I wanted to say that their agility comes from whatever it is that powers their touch of death, I could say, well, let's say that we're going to use attribute substitution. We're going to use entropy instead of our agility score. That would mean I could take the 3 that I put into agility and put it anywhere else, because mechanically I don't need anything in agility. I'm just going to be using my entropy for it. And there's 2 levels of attribute substitution. So you can see 1, making non-attack, non-defend, non-invocation action rolls, calculating hit points, meeting prereqs, and other situations. But tier 2, so I'd have to take it twice, which would cost me a total of 4. That's when I can make attacks and invoke banes and boons that would normally require agility in this case. But I can use I could use my entropy for that. So as much as we could do that, I think I like how we have it already here. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to do, because we haven't done anything with movement here. I forgot about this. One of our boons. I did want to give haste. So you can see power level 2 is the only thing we could do. The target speed is increased by 10 feet. So to give it that kind of unnatural ability to move very, very quickly, I think the haste boon makes sense. So let's go ahead and put that in here. Haste. There we go. Haste boon is going to be movement, to kind of justify the fact that we did give them movement. As the character levels up, depending on how they kind of evolve, you might change movement instead of using haste. I don't know if they have it. No, because you don't have a high enough movement yet. There is a teleport boon that you can use, but you need to have a higher movement score to use it. And that might be what I eventually transition this character from, just being super fast to being able to move almost instantaneously, and we would use teleport to simulate that. So going back to our feats. So here we have some interesting stuff like boon focus. If we wanted to say that they're just really, really good at their summoning creatures, and so they don't have to ever invoke for it, they just automatically succeed. So you can see here, tier 1, when you choose to invoke the chosen boon on a single target, you succeed automatically and do not need to make an action roll. You can invoke the boon at any power levels you could access via your other means. If the invocation is not a single target, success is not automatic, but you get advantage 2 on the action roll to invoke the boon. So with this, we could choose boon focus summoning so that they always succeed when they are creating these zombies out of corpses. But part of the lore is that not every creature they dissect turns into a zombie. So while boon focus could be something that'd be really interesting, I don't think it fits with how the character's been described. So again, your limitations are going to be, okay, what does the lore say? So you need to really define, especially once you start looking at feats, you need to really define what you're doing. As you can do, there is a companion boon where if we wanted to go a slightly different route where they always had a zombie around them, we could do companion and they would basically get a second character. But again, I think summon fits a little bit better than having a companion, because the creatures that they create never stay around for too long. So it fits a little more with the summon boon. What's this one again? Oh, this is agility based. Anytime you use the defend action, you gain advantage 1 in the action roll. Cool. Extraordinary defense. This would be something that if we wanted to... we wanted to kind of improve their defenses because of something. As you can see, so you can have movement, prescience, or protection. And that can give you a tier in here. We do have movement, so if they were massively fast and they use that in a defensive manner, we could use this. We're not going to. Ferocious minions, though, does kind of make sense. So as you can see, alteration entropy level 4. We can get up to tier 2. It basically, creatures under the effect of your charmed or dominate banes or those creatures invoked on the summon creatures boon gain advantage 1 on all attack rolls to protect you or act in your favor for each tier this feat possesses. So basically, if we took 1 tier of this, anytime we summon one of these zombie things, it would get advantage 1 on all of its attacks. We get 2 tiers, it gets advantage 2 on all of its attacks. So I think that's one we're going to keep open right now. So I think we're definitely going to use that at least once. We might use it twice. Flying, heightened invocation. We don't really need that. And this is all agility based, so we're not going to do that. Knowledge. So this might be something interesting. We could use this to effectively kind of simulate their medical knowledge, where they don't have to try and remember like anatomy or anything, they just know it. So that's another one that I'm going to kind of leave open, because it does kind of make sense there. Multi-attack, multi-bane, multi-target boon specialist. So with the summoning boon, you can actually summon multiples of it. You can multi-target and basically summon 2 or 3 at the same time. So with multi-target boon specialist, normally when you multi-target a summon, you get disadvantage 2 for each extra thing you summon. So if we take 2 levels of multi-target boon specialist, anytime they created a creature, they could create 2 at the same time without having to roll any disadvantage at all. Again, something that I think might be somewhere we would eventually take this character, so they could create little armies of zombies. I don't think they're there right now, though. So choose 1 Bane that you can evoke that has a duration of resist ends. When a target makes a resist roll to shake up your invocation of the chosen Bane, they have disadvantage 1. This might be really good for that Fear Bane, or what's the other Banes we had? The Persistent Damage Bane. That would be another thing that I think would kind of make a lot of sense for this, that getting rid of this plague is significantly more difficult. So I think that could be really interesting. So yeah, when a target makes a resist roll to shake off your invocation of the chosen Bane, they have disadvantage 1. That's pretty useful. We'll keep that open for a second. Superior concentration just means that you can concentrate on multiple things at the same time. It's another one that might make sense for this. Interesting. Well-rounded. Wealthy. Sworn enemy. So this is basically kind of like a hunter's mark kind of thing. Which I don't think really makes sense, because again, the pestilence, as much as they claim that they're an expert on it, they have no idea what it is. So if the pestilence was a real thing, sworn enemy might be something that we could use for any pestilence-based creatures. We'd be really knowledgeable about them. But it doesn't exist, and that's our little secret, so. Skill specialization. We have natural defense. We might play around with natural defense, just because again the creature itself is otherworldly, and so this would give us bonus to guard and to the toughness, just to kind of show how it's weird that it can do certain to the things. I'm looking at point cost, because right now I'm kind of sold on not this one, on Ferocious Minions 2, and then we have 2 more feat points that we can use. So I'm just trying to see if there's something that makes more sense that'll also be 2. So I guess multi-target Boon Specialist might be something, or again, Natural Defense might be it. I don't think the Natural Defense makes a whole lot, but multi-target Boon Specialist I think does. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to do 2 levels of Ferocious Minions and then multi-target Boon Specialist. So again, we go here. So we're going to go Ferocious Minions 2, which costs 4. Automatically does that for us. And then we're also going to go multi-target Boon, which basically means that if they want to... there we go. If they do want to summon multiple zombies at the same time, which you can only sustain 1 effect per round. So if they did use summon creature 1 round, if they wanted to create another one, they would have to sacrifice the one that they already have, mechanics wise. So this will just mean that if they are like working on 2 different corpses or something, they could technically raise both of those corpses simultaneously, and they have a little bit easier time doing that. So I like that. I think that's interesting. So yeah, that's feats. And as you can see, just by taking these 2 feats, we have vastly kind of changed how this character plays. They are really, really good at creating minions, which, because they are very kind of Bane focused, it does make sense for them to use their minions to attack for them. And if we look at the Plague Doctor themselves, in the stories themselves, the zombies that they create aren't technically controlled by the Plague Doctor, but they are dangerous. So it does make sense for the Ferocious Minions thing to be a thing. And then when we look mechanically, this character is going to be kind of a pet-based class, if you want to define it in terms that are a little bit easier to understand. So yeah. Finally, after we're done with choosing attributes, record defenses, hit points, and speed. Speed, your default speed is always 30 feet, unless you get a feat or something that increases it. Or again, haste will make it faster, but your default speed is 30 feet. And because this auto-populates everything, we didn't have to do that. We purchased feats. They do have step 5 is choosing starting equipment. This character really doesn't have any quote-unquote starting equipment. And again, because your attacks are always just going to be based on your attributes, it doesn't really matter what we do. It doesn't wear any kind of armor, so we don't have to worry about that. If it was wearing armor, we definitely want to give it armor. But there are rules as far as what equipment you can start with. You begin with a wealth score of 2. Instead of having gold, like a set amount of gold, you have what's called a wealth score. The wealth score basically kind of interprets what would be easy enough for you to get. So I think I'm going to look up, because I'm more familiar with the website than I am the core rulebook, and I have the core rulebook open to certain things. Wealth and equipment. There we go. So a wealth score of 2 is basically the equivalent of a skilled laborer or a town guard, and they specifically say a first level hero. So examples of things that you could easily purchase with a wealth level of 2 would be martial weapons, an all-terrain vehicle, chainmail armor, or a good horse. These are all things that you would be able to afford at a wealth level of 2. So they say you begin with a wealth score of 2 and may select up to 3 items of wealth level 2 and any number of items of a lesser wealth level. So if you look in the chapter 6 is where they list wealth and equipment. If you look at the equipment in the 3rd column, it will tell you what the wealth level is of all the different weapons and armor and stuff like that to kind of figure out if you can do it. I think for a melee weapon, they would have... I'm not sure if they're going to have something listed here. But we're going to give just a knife. Do you have just a knife starts with K? Nope. So we're just going to call it a shiv, because technically they're going to have a so you can see Bane's that it's good at, disarmed and persistent damage, and then it's swift for its speed. They do use one of those scalpel. So I think giving it a scalpel would make sense. It doesn't need any ranged abilities because it's just not a ranged character, and it tends to touch for everything. And then you can see you could give another one. You don't need to, because this is a shiv. It does mean it's a swift. We count it as a swift speed. So it means that you have advantage, I think, 1 or 2 on your... yeah, as you can see, initiative right here. You have advantage 2 because we equipped the shiv. And it's a d20 plus a d8 because you have agility. Here we go. So yeah, otherwise, the only thing left is we have perks and flaws. Perks and flaws are another thing that are kind of interesting. They're just more ways to kind of customize your character at level 1. They are completely optional, meaning that you can take up to 2 perks and up to 2 flaws at level 1. And as you go on, your DM might award you another perk or another flaw as you go. But they're not necessary. You can create a character without any perks or flaws, or you can make sure all of your characters have 2 perks and 2 flaws every time you build them. One thing that I tend to focus on, the perks are cool. So you can see like ageless here. I want to bring this back up so I can see. So ageless. Based on the source of your agelessness, you can decide whether or not your appearance changes over time. And then you're immune to the passage of time and the effects of old age. Your body does not age, and you cannot be harmed by extraordinary effects that cause aging. So that might be something that kind of fits this creature. They don't have an age. They're kind of immortal. But you can see there's a lot of other things. I think disease immunity might be something that makes the most sense to give them some sort of a perk. So I'm going to go disease immunity, which does fit with the idea of the plague doctor. They're constantly surrounding themselves by diseased creatures, and yet they never seem to catch anything. And I think that makes the most sense to give them that. So I like having, give a perk or 2 if it makes sense. But what I really, really like is flaws. Flaws really, really help you define your character. They create more interesting ideas. I think for this particular character, giving them a compulsion, specifically their compulsion is they have to cure the pestilence. And you will see all of these things are very, very kind of broadly defined. In this particular instance, you can see compulsion. You have an irresistible urge to perform a behavior of your choice. Examples include blah, 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 blah. Your compulsion can sometimes put you in awkward or embarrassing situations, such as needing to wash your hands immediately after shaking hands with an ambassador. So you can see it gives you examples, but it doesn't define it for you. Again, the entire purpose of Open Legend is take the rules and make them work for you. Don't make your idea work in the rules. So I think compulsion makes the most sense. So we're going to put a compulsion in there. And they won't let me, on this character sheet, it won't let me kind of define the compulsion. But we can put in the notes. Compulsion. I do that every single time. Really? Come on. Compulsion. Must eradicate and cure any creature with the pestilence. So, that's your compulsion. Anytime you notice this idea of a creature being infected with the pestilence, you have to cure them, and it generally involves you killing them. So that makes for a really interesting horror character. As far as a character to play with other players, this would not be the most fun character to have in a party, but it would make for a very, very interesting party, to say the least. And as you can see, there's a lot more flaws in here. You know, hot-tempered, proud, vengeful, stubborn, zealous. All of them very interesting, allow you to do things. I've mentioned this before. I'm not a huge fan of doing things like gamifying mental illnesses like phobias or psychosis or mood disorders and things like that. I'm not a big fan of that being gamified. I think it's insulting and belittling to people that actually struggle with it. But if that is an aspect of your character that you want to discover, the entire point of flaws as far as mechanics are concerned is when you do something that is disadvantageous to yourself or the party because of a flaw that you have, you actually are awarded a legend point for that. We talked about that in my Discovering New Dragons video, where legend points basically allow you to burn them to give yourself advantage one on a roll, and you can burn multiple legend points on a single roll based on your level. So leaning into your flaws and using them often not only is going to make a more interesting character to play, but it also is there are mechanical benefits for you actually using your flaws. And they encourage you to do that. The perks give you something, a bonus, but the flaws are the things that are actually going to help you to roleplay your character and give you incentives to roleplay your character, which I really, really like. So you can see, like, this is our character. It's not remarkably difficult. Most of the kind of complexity of this character was me just explaining what everything does. As you can see, it wasn't hard to build this character at all. Again, I have, and we can put in the equipment section here. We can go scalpel. Is that how you spell scalpel? How do you spell scalpel? Scalpel, there we go. Scalpel, and then we put in parentheses shivs. So we know that over here, where it says shiv, we know that that's actually our scalpel. Yeah, as you can see, like, super easy, simple character to build, and now everything's there. So that is going to be all for me today. As always, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to turn notifications on. All those things are super, super important in the comments down below. Like I said, there's nothing to really guide me for making characters. We're going to make 2 more. So, in the comments below, what is another character you'd like me to see? You can name a character like this suggestion was a specific character that already exists, or you can just kind of describe a character that you would like to see. Like, well, I'd like to see someone that, you know, uses a magic sword that randomly changes its element, and he kind of manifests it from his own abilities. Or, you know, I want a Dark Knight style character that kind of sacrifices his own life force to hurt his enemies or things. You know, create an interesting sounding character, and the next 2 episodes of Designing New Dragons, we will create them. If you don't have an idea for a KK character, just let me know what let me know what you think of this particular character, as far as if this was a character in your party. First of all, would you want to play this character? And second of all, if you're not playing this character, would you want them in your party, and how would you deal with having a character like this in your party? Again, comments down below. Otherwise, again, that is all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.